The day will come when everyone will be pointing up at something new and ominous in the sky. This will be a time when many feel the tight grip of fear clutching at their throats, not because of what they see, but because they are not prepared for what they're seeing, the arrival of the Planet X tribulation. They will not have years, decades, or the better part of a lifetime to process this tribulation awareness. Rather, they'll be plunged into a sudden state of awareness compression where, in a matter of weeks or months, they'll be forced to deal with a clear and present danger. Some may have the wherewithal and the motivation to acquire bullets, beans, and bunkers. Either way, what they will not have for certain is peace of mind, as events will propel them into the winds of a horrible hurricane of sheer terror. But every hurricane has an eye where one can find peace long enough to assess the situation, formulate a plan, and then to act on that plan with confidence. Those in leadership roles will be especially mindful of this need. That being said, knowing where the eye of the storm is or how to create it is where you in awareness come into play. Think of it. You, who have been in awareness through dreams, visions, and premonitions, and who have had to process this dreadful information within the isolation forced upon you by family and friends in denial, have had years, if not decades, to do it. Therefore, if you're thinking of this in terms of collateral damage in your life, you're completely missing the purpose of your gift. Why? Because this is how Creator has prepared you for a very special mission in the tribulation, one that cannot be measured by money alone. Those who have been in awareness through dreams, visions, and premonitions are a precious few. This is because they were destined before birth to help others anticipate tribulation events and to create hope for the future by being in service as teachers, mentors, and comforters. If this role resonates with your own life experience, then you are not here by happenstance. And if you are in stage 4 of awareness, you will know where to seek out the eye of the storm. And if you are in stage 5, you will already be there. Either way, you now have a plan, and this is why I wrote my book, Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, for you. On the back cover of the book is your plan. For those in awareness, know this. You are in awareness because God intends for you to be a part of the solution. Your role is to be a mentor, a comforter, and a teacher during the tribulation. Read and study this book thoroughly to prepare yourself for your true mission. Then, when a spiritual leader you admire and respect is seeing the same clear and present danger that you are, your path is simple. Hand that leader this book as you say, you need a plan, and this is the plan that will work for what is coming. Please read it, and if you have any questions, I am always at your service. If you and your loved ones are to survive the coming tribulation, then you need to be able to gain the confidence and present yourself as a valuable asset to tribulation community leaders. This book is your bridging tool to do exactly that, and it offers you the following 3 benefits. First, it has a fast-track design for those struggling with awareness in the face of a clear and present danger. Written in a story-driven conversational style, it will help newly aware leaders to find their own peace in the eye of the storm, so they can quickly absorb vital tribulation concepts. Secondly, this book is a confidence builder for those you will be in service to. By reading and studying this book, you'll experience firsthand the true power of the mentoring process. Then, when the time comes, be yourself as you mentor and comfort tribulation leaders through the difficulties of awareness compression. In this way, you will gain their confidence both through your centeredness and through your devotion to being in service to others. And lastly, use this book as a bridging tool. If you cannot afford a hill of beans, you need to prove to a survival community that you are worth your weight in beans. Therefore, using this book as a bridging tool will help you to establish your value as a tribulation teacher, mentor, and comforter. Next up, we're going to begin looking at a large number of still images and videos of Planet X sighting observations. And then finally, we will close the program with the Luciferian agenda as I explain it, what it is, how it works, what you can do to help defeat it, and where to begin. We'll begin with an interesting series of observation images sent to me by a farmer in Spain. On October 6th of this year, I received the following series of images captured by Jordi Funosis of Cabanas, Spain, with his iPhone. Jordi is a farmer and was returning from his fields with his farmhand when, according to him, both he and his farmhand witnessed an object of interest to the right of the sun near sunset. I usually do not pay much attention to images captured with a smartphone, but this submission was different. It was an eyewitness report with a series of images of what Jordi and his farmhand had witnessed beforehand with their own two eyes. However, what really caught my eye was Jordi's number 10 image in the sequence. I could see Jordi's farmhand standing next to the van, and so I enhanced the image to see what his farmhand was looking at. What you can clearly see in this enhanced image was that the farmhand was shielding his eyes from the sun, although he was not looking towards the sun. Rather, you can see that he is looking at the object of interest to the right of the sun at the sun's 3 o'clock position. This really piqued my curiosity, so I decided to run a field of view and gamma test on this 10th image. Here you see the results of my analysis. In terms of the field of view, Jupiter was close to the horizon and barely just above it, down to the right of the sun. Also, there are no cataloged objects in the field of view where we see our object of interest. So far, so good. So I ran a gamma test, and the result was positive, that Jordi's farmhand was looking at a hot object to the right of the sun, which means that this object of interest is generating light on its own. Or in other words, it is a natural object. Were it not for the fact that Jordi and his farmhand had observed the object of interest before Jordi took his pictures, I would have classified this as another glowing clouds submission. However, I put great credence in eyewitness reports, and what we have here are images to corroborate an eyewitness report by two observers. With that in mind, let's take a look at some other glowing cloud observations such as we see on YouTube these days. Here we have 3 glowing clouds video reports. They are Nibiru, Planet X, Dark Star System, England, July 2016 by Dill Martin. Planet X, Nibiru Blue Kachina, Nibiru sighted in Albany, Indiana, USA, August 3rd, 2016 by That Is Impossible. And Nibiru System Fire in the Sky, Nibiru captured 3 times in just under a week, 2016, number 51, by Mark Johnny. The difficulty with all 3 videos is that while they show an object to the right of the sun at the 3 o'clock position, we do not have an unobstructed view of the object of interest. Therefore, it is difficult to say with certainty that these are reliable reports, although 2 of these videos are compelling. So, how do you tell if an observation report is reliable? Well, as you've seen, you first run the pre-perihelion test, then vet the source. If you get past these 6 criteria successfully, you're ready for what some would call the acid test. I call it the object of interest test. The first thing you want to see is an unobstructed view of the object of interest at some point in the video. Second, see if you can secure a reliable eyewitness report. With eyewitness reports, you want the name of the observer, the date that they made the observation, and a statement from them in writing that they saw the object in the sky before they took the picture or made the video. For me, credible eyewitnesses are those who are willing to clearly identify themselves and who will state what they saw with their own 2 eyes before recording their observation. And finally, the gamma test, a technique I developed and I have demonstrated in this and other videos. Briefly, gamma is a digital editing feature. It does not work with film. When running a gamma test, you are looking to see if the object of interest behaves the same as the sun. If it does, the result is positive, as we saw with the gamma analysis of the 10th image submitted to me by Jordi Funosis of Cabanes, Spain. The important thing for you to remember when looking at these images and videos is that many are like the fingerprints at the scene of a crime. In other words, circumstantial evidence, as opposed to smoking gun direct evidence. However, both forms of evidence are useful, and to illustrate the point, let's take a look at an observation report I do believe to be reliable, and that is, if you weigh the evidence. This was a very popular observation video posted by Baltimore MD on May 15, 2016, titled, "You Do Not Believe in Nibiru? See This." As the video is 3 minutes and 23 seconds long, I've divided it into 3 segments: takeoff, at altitude, and object of interest. So let's take a look at it. The first thing I love about this video is that the observer is narrating the entire sequence, which begins on the ground at takeoff and then as his jet goes to altitude. Along the way, he does point out chemtrails, which I felt was important because images taken at altitude above the chemtrail layer are more reliable in general. Towards the end of this video, we see his object of interest to the right of the sun at the 3 o'clock position. What is important to keep in mind is that the observer is capturing this image through plexiglass as he is looking at it. For those who wonder if plexiglass is a way to debunk the video, it's not. The reason is professional aquarium builders use plexiglass instead of regular glass. This is because plexiglass offers a much clearer, glare-free, reflection-free, realistic image than glass. However, it would have been nice if the airplane had banked to the right a bit so that the object of interest could have been centered in the window. But you have to work with what you have. So with that, let's move on to the gamma test and see how this object of interest behaves. We're going to start the gamma test at the default values, which are a brightness level of 0 and a gamma of 1.0. Now, let's step it down in a sequence of 6 steps to see what happens. Here we see a brightness of 0 and a gamma of 0.75. Then we reduce the gamma again to 0.5, and we still see the faint image of cloud cover. However, once we use a brightness setting of 10 and a gamma of 0.1, all we see is the sun and the object of interest to its right at the 3 o'clock position. And here we've stepped it down to a brightness of 5 and a gamma of 0.01. And all we can see is a very faint image of both the sun and the object of interest. Finally, when we set the brightness to 0 with a gamma of 0.01, the sun and the object of interest disappear simultaneously. That means we have a positive gamma test and that the object to the right of the sun is generating its own light. Therefore, it is a natural object. With the exception of the Fluters hoax video, all of the observation reports we have seen so far present an object of interest to the right of the sun at the 3 o'clock position. And interestingly enough, even the marginal observation reports are consistent with this 3 o'clock position relative to the sun. But if we were in a spaceship out in space, would we see this object at the 3 o'clock position? Or would we see it somewhere else? In the last two observation reports, we've seen this object appear to the right of the sun at its 3 o'clock position, relative to the horizon. With that in mind, let's see how our horizon is relative to the sun. What you see now are the north and south celestial poles of Earth's axis, which is presently tilted 23.5 degrees from the plane of our orbit around the sun. Therefore, our horizon, as we see it from the ground, is likewise tilted relative to the sun. Consequently, when we see an object at the sun's 3 o'clock position relative to the horizon, it appears to be parallel with the sun's equator. However, if we're in a spaceship out in space, the object of interest to the right of the sun is actually above the sun's equator at the 2 o'clock position. So why is this significant? It is significant because in my book, Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, I present a sequence of color illustrations showing the orbit of the Planet X system around our sun, and that it is not parallel with the sun's equator. Rather, it is well above the sun's equator at the 2 o'clock position. Also, please note, these orbital illustrations are for discussion only. This brings us to a discussion of what is the most important and yet controversial series of observation videos from Brazil, both this year and last. On April 16, 2016, I published an article titled Helion in the Planet X System Observed in Brazil, in which I performed an analysis of a webcam capture by Skywatch Media posted on April 13, 2016. If this is Helion, what's really interesting is that it is only observed from Brazil in the months of April and September. So let's see what the observations were reported on YouTube for April 2016. Here we see 3 different April 2016 observation captures of the Sal Vicente webcam on different days and by different YouTube channels. Nano 63 on the 2nd, Ninja Cat on the 3rd, and Downsizing Oahu LLC on the 6th. Also note that in the Ninja Cat and Downsizing Oahu LLC videos, we see a reflection on the water from the object of interest that is different on both days. Now, let's take a look at 3 videos from the month of September. Here we have another 3 observation videos for the month of September 2016, with Marian Publishing on the 8th, Revelaciones Propheticas on the 13th, and then once again on the 14th. Also note the webcam feed offers 2 views, a close-up view such as you see on the 13th and the wide-angle view as you see on the 14th. As was reported by another researcher, both views come from the same camera and the close-up view is processed for the feed. I find it interesting that debunkers tend to ignore hoaxes like the one that Fluters posted, and they immediately go for observations that seem to ring true with people. So let's see how the debunkers attacked the Brazil observations. Here we see 3 debunking videos by Dark Energy, D5UNCR, and Dazza the Cameraman. All 3 use the same exact debunking attack. They focus on a brief moment of time just before the object of interest crests the mountains in the far field of view. These debunkers treat the object's halo no differently than the object, which serves their agenda because the object's halo briefly appears in front of land and sometimes in front of the water as well. All 3 debunkers present this as incontrovertible proof of a lens flare. So, are they right? As with the Fluters hoax video, let's consider the source, because there is a real difference between a debunker and a good cynic. A good cynic is looking for the truth, whereas debunkers simply want to have their ego stroked, and they'll take any cheap shot to get it. For this reason, do not become totally focused on what they're showing you. Rather, look for what they're not showing you. To prove the point, let's look at an example. Here we see a picture where the moisture of the fog is causing the sun to appear in front of a landmass, and arguably in front of the water as well. Keeping this in mind, please note that São Vicente, Brazil has a coastal, humid climate, and that all of the observations we have for April and September are very early in the morning at sunrise, a time when coastal residents will tell you to expect morning fog. And fog can be simply defined as a cloud on the ground. Therefore, this raises a simple question. Is it possible for the extreme moisture of morning fog to bend light? As you see in this inset image, light can and does bend. A good cynic would have made this point, but debunkers like Dazza the Cameraman are not interested in seeking the truth. They are agenda-driven people who want to sling mud so as to stroke their own egos. So, assuming for the moment that we had a video by a good cynic, would they have been looking at other things in the video as well that are difficult to explain? Yes, and one of them would have been infrared sensitivity. One of the things that is difficult with modern digital cameras is that some are sensitive to infrared and others are not. I discussed this with Richard Shaw of Pinlight Productions in Hollywood, and he did a quick test for me using a Sony remote with his own iPhone 5S and GoPro Hero 3 Plus cameras. What his test shows is that while his iPhone camera is not sensitive to infrared, his GoPro camera is. Regrettably, we do not know the exact model of camera used by the São Vicente feed, nor are we able to test it to see if it is in fact sensitive in the infrared range. Consequently, all we can do is speculate about infrared sensitivity as a possible explanation. And then there is another thorny question. The object of interest is only observed in the months of April and September. So, why is it not observed throughout the entire year? Let's ponder that one. As we saw earlier, the view from Earth's horizon is not the same as the view of the ecliptic from space, the ecliptic being the plane of our solar system. In this animation, we see the tilt of Earth's axis relative to the ecliptic as our planet orbits the Sun. While this tilt is 23.5 degrees at present, it does vary over time, During a cycle that averages about 40,000 years, the tilt varies between 22.1 and 24.5 degrees. The point here is that Earth's orbit around the Sun is not an absolute constant, as some would assume. It would therefore stand to reason that the same holds true for Helion, the innermost planet in orbit around our Sun's sister star, Nemesis. This then raises an interesting possibility. If we are only seeing Helion in April and in September, could it be that Helion's elliptical orbit around Nemesis is 6 months long, according to our calendar? This could possibly explain why we see Helion from São Vicente in the months of April and September. But then again, there is Occam's razor. All things being equal, the simplest solution tends to be the best one. So what would that be? That April and September are the 2 months of the year when celestial alignments allow us a brief glimpse of the object of interest at sunrise. So with that, let's cut to the chase and ask the question that is no doubt on your mind. Is there a smoking gun? Yes, there is a smoking gun. And this is exactly the kind of evidence that an agenda-driven debunker like Dazza the cameraman does not want you to see. But see it now, you will. We have smoking gun direct evidence thanks to reports by Downsizing Oahu, LLC on April the 4th and 7th, and another report by Dave B. on September 15th of this year. What these 3 observation reports from April and September offer is direct evidence that disproves the debunking argument of Dazza the cameraman and others who maintain that the object of interest is a lens flare. Keep in mind that lens flares occur just in front of or inside the lens itself. Ergo, when you see clouds passing across an object of interest in a gradual and natural way, you know it is behind the cloud. In other words, when you see a cloud moving in front of an object so that it becomes obscured, it cannot be called a lens flare. That being said, one of the videos you see here by Dave B. is without question the pick of the litter. So let's take a closer look at it. In his video refuting the debunking argument of Dazza the cameraman and others, Dave B. does what we call a shuttle jog. He goes forward and then backwards to conclusively illustrate that the object of interest is not a lens flare. This is important because what we're seeing in all the different observation reports in this program is 2 things. They come from all across the globe, and they consistently show us an object of interest to the right of the sun at its 3 o'clock relative to the horizon. The day will come when everyone will be pointing up at something new and ominous in the sky. This will be a time when many feel the tight grip of fear clutching at their throats, not because of what they see, but because they are not prepared for what they're seeing, the arrival of the Planet X tribulation. They will not have years, decades, or the better part of a lifetime to process this tribulation awareness. Rather, they'll be plunged into a sudden state of awareness compression where in a matter of weeks or months they'll be forced to deal with a clear and present danger. Some may have the same clear and present danger that you are. Your path is simple. Hand that leader this book as you say. You need a plan, and this is the plan that will work for what is coming. Please read it, and if you have any questions, I am always at your service. If you and your loved ones are to survive the coming tribulation, then you need to be able to gain the confidence and present yourself as a valuable asset to tribulation community leaders. This book is your bridging tool to do exactly that, and it offers you the following 3 benefits. First, it has a fast-track design for those struggling with awareness in the face of a clear and present danger. Written in a story-driven conversational experience, then you are not here by happenstance. And if you are in stage 4 of awareness, you will know where to seek out the eye of the storm. And if you are in stage 5, you will already be there. Either way, you now have a plan, and this is why I wrote my book, Surviving the Planet X Tribulation, for you. On the back cover of the book is your plan. For those in awareness, know this. You are in awareness because God intends for you to be a part of the solution. Your role is to be a mentor, a comforter, and a teacher during the tribulation. Read and study this book thoroughly to prepare yourself for your true mission. Then, when a spiritual leader you admire and respect is seeing this, have the wherewithal and the motivation to acquire bullets, beans, and bunkers. Either way, what they will not have for certain is peace of mind, as events will propel them into the winds of a horrible hurricane of sheer terror. But every hurricane has an eye where one can find peace long enough to assess the situation, formulate a plan, and then to act on that plan with confidence. Those in leadership roles will be especially mindful of this need. That being said, knowing where the eye of the storm is or how to create it is where you in awareness come into play. Think of it. You who have been in awareness through dreams, visions, and premonitions, and who have had to process this dreadful information within the isolation forced upon you by family and friends in denial, have had years, if not decades, to do it. Therefore, if you're thinking of this in terms of collateral damage in your life, you're completely missing the purpose of your gift. Why? Because this is how Creator has prepared you for a very special mission in the tribulation, one that cannot be measured by money alone. Those who have been in awareness through dreams, visions, and premonitions are a precious few. This is because they were destined before birth to help others anticipate tribulation events and to create hope for the future by being in service as teachers, mentors, and comforters. If this role resonates with your own life experience,